Luther. I invited to go to church with us. He was upset because we sang Martin Luther's for the Jill. Mighty Fortress is our king. He says, hey, that's our song. And I said, no, we take the truth no matter where it comes from. We're together. And we were so broke when we got to Hawaii, we couldn't do anything, but we wanted to get off that dumb ship. So we went out walking in a neighborhood like this, just housing where people live. I wonder how many coincidences does it take before it's not a coincidence. I'm praying to get this stubborn guy to listen to me. And we're going down the street, and all of a sudden, out of a house came a man from Lakeside, Arizona, an older man by the name of Pratt Larson, named after Parley P. Pratt. And Pratt Larson had a young companion, and he bore his testimony to Don and told him, you get with the program, boy. And he started listening from then on, and he read the Book of Mormon for you. But there's few people that have a big a heart as this guy's got. And we had some great times in the United States CB. I brought one to share with you here. I had a CB buddy that often went to church with our LDS group. Our work was different. He was a carpenter and I was mostly a welder. He came up to me one day and he asked me if I would go with him to visit his brother's grave near Manila. I told him, sure, I'll go with you. But afterwards, I really wanted to back out. It was an all-day trip on an LSD to get to there. And then we spent a day there and then a whole day back just to visit his brother's grave. And I tried to talk others to go with me. Couldn't. I finally talked Don into going with me. And I put it down here. The all-day trip was made a little bit better when Don Bailey decided he'd go with us. I loved to visit with Don. Made the trip a whole lot better. When we finally got to the cemetery, I was so shocked at the size of this cemetery. Almost 160 acres. I learned later that it's the largest military cemetery in the world, where 17,201 Americans were buried there in World War II. In the front of the cemetery, there were 11 big limestone deals with the names of 36,285 servicemen who were missing in action or lost in the jungle somewhere. And boy, it really hit me. It took a number of hours for us to find the buddy's grave where his brother was buried. We then spent a number of hours there and we took pictures. 35 millimeter color slides. You probably got one.
I got one, yeah.
And he asked Don and I if we'd pray. And all three of us knelt down there, and Don prayed first, and then I prayed. And afterwards, he got up and big old tears running down his eyes, and he gave Don and I a heavenly hug. Just hugged the heck out of us. Thank you. And it really hit me that day, the terrible price we paid for the freedom that we enjoy today here. I don't know if it ever hit me like it did then. But Don and I, we shed a ton of tears together, and I recently talked to Don on writing down the treasured experiences of Harvey Gardner. Not a family history, but just all little experiences. And I got about 350 some odd. This is 153. But at the last of it, I asked Don, do you remember the name of this guy? He said, I can't, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't scrape it off. Me too.
His last name was Cale.
Kale. Yeah, K-A-L-E.
I'm pretty sure that was his last name.
Huh.
It just came to me.
But I'll never forget the feelings I had that day. And Don and I played for this guy, and all the way back, so sometimes there's things you're glad you did when you really didn't want to do it. That was one of my life. Didn't want to do it, but afterward, oh, how grateful I was that and every time he saw me after that, I got one of those heavenly hugs. And I want you to know this guy's got good blood. And he paid a heck of a price. He was on a Super C turnpike on one of them pictures floating around here. And going way too fast, but they killed 11, we had 11 guys killed there in just a few months. We were taking the top of this mountain off, shoving it out into the sea, and bringing the coral up. Don was running, and one of the guys come driving up in a welding truck, and he said, come quick, Don's pinned under a
Wait, time out.
Super C turnpike.
I got a video of this. This is a good story.
You remember what happened there?
Yeah, we were loading, and this kid, his name was Fanny Barinas.
You're not videoing anymore.
He was on the cab pushing me, and I was just starting to pick up the thing, and it had a gooseneck where you hooked on the bottom and on top, and the bottom one came up apart, and so the tractor just folded right back up on that gooseneck, and there I am pinned in there, and the fuel tanks are up along the side of the engine, so it's running down by me, and he's running over here, then he runs over here, and finally I told him, I said, Stanley, go get some help. And so he went and got this welding truck he was talking about, and they come down there, and hooked on, I know, I said, get a hold of the top of that thing, I don't want it coming over backwards on me. In fact, when I first saw that come in the air, I thought she was a widow. But anyway, they hooked onto it, and this one guy, he pulled the hoist lever, which let the thing loose from the other back half of the tractor. And when it did, it turned me loose. I'm pinned in there with those levers against me, and as soon as that thing, the pressure went off, I was out like a light. And they took me down to sick bay, and you understand?
Me and Stanley gave you a blessing.
Yeah. And
He was, let me tell you how thin he was. Smashed in between you. I bet he wasn't that wide. And the stories were all over the place at Don and almost dead, but that happened in the middle of the week, and Sunday he went to church. And everybody thought he was dead.
well, what was funny was that the doctor checked me out. I didn't have a broken bone. I didn't have a scratch on. The doctor went out there and looked at the red, you know. He come back, and it's about 7 o'clock in the evening. He looked at me and he says, I don't even know how you're alive. You got is a few slight bruises, you know. And but I knew why, because in the Stanley Coons used their priesthood, and the Lord gave me a blessing, and I know after, like he said, Sunday, I went to we were in church together.
Well, and he married my wife's best friend from over in the White Mountains Lakeside, Carleen Webb, and best thing he ever did. He done some good things.
I went back to Michigan to tell my folks about the church and that I was going to get baptized. Well, they got all their information from the Lutheran ministry, so it was a little bit slanted, to say the least. So when I left there, they figured that I was no more their son or anything. I got off that plane, and then I come down that walkway, and I saw him, and I was so glad. I just hugged him. I was so glad to finally see a friendly face. And Darlene gave me a hug, and then Harvey turned around and he says, I want you to meet this girl. And And I looked into those blue eyes and she stuck her hand out. He says, "This is Carlene Webb." And I shook her hand and I says, "How do you do?" First time I did it.
He said it wasn't love at first sight, but it was really a magical moment. You know what that is?
But anyway,
And what was the first thing Granny fell in love with Papa?
His red hair. I fell in love with that hair, and he had to come with
oh, what I'm crying.
me. He'll be back.
Anyway, we that's
It's right here, Dad.
bird's eye view, we'll call that.
It's right over there on that chair asleep on her mother.
Right here.
That's where
You
that
just
hair
follow
is.
this guy.
Right
and
there.
go home and
Right
take
there.
it.
It's over at, well, we do have some of the red hair popping out.
I got, not all here, we've got 8 children and 31 grandchildren. 33 grandchildren and 21 great-grandchildren, and then there's another one. More than right there. I'm not counting it, but,
I think you get the bragging rights, doesn't you?
so anyway, I just wanted her to come over here and see what he did.
I'm responsible for all that.
Look what you did.
He's responsible because he bore his testimony to me, and I knew that it was true. And God really, we are all God's children. We're all brothers and sisters. We all, it says that in the creation, God created Adam in his own image. Well, if he created Adam in his own image, and we're all Adam's descendants, then our bodies must be similar to what God's is. And that old Luther minister that used to hold up that little 3-leaf clover and tell me that the Godhead was like a 3-leaf clover. Didn't make any sense to me at all. But when I found out what Joseph Smith saw in that grove, I knew that was right, and it's right today. They are to be just as same as you and I. They're our Christ is our older brother, and God is our eternal Father. The Father of the Spirit that's inside of us. Yes, we father some children. He fathered those spirits. And it's true today, and it always will be true. And He wants all of us back. Harvey told me one time, he says, when I get up to the celestial kingdom and I sit down at the table with my family, I want no empty chairs. and I feel the same way about my children. When we get up there, and we sit down and get everything together, I want no empty chairs either. I want all 8 of my children there, just like He wants all 7 of them.
7 and
7 of them, yeah.
How many grandchildren?
that's Darlene.
How many? 24.
24.
And Greg? 3?
More than that.
4. 4. We just got one here not too long ago.
We got a bunch more on the way.
That's right.
You remember Carl Webb?
Do I know the Webbs? I do, and
Well, I'll tell you a story. Carl Webb told me one time, he said, he says, when him and Annie Crowell got married, he says, we were adding. When we went to his funeral, there was 246 out of 249 of his descendants that were there at that funeral. Those 3 that were missing were on missions. and he said, and he told me one time just before he died, he said, yeah, he says, we had it for a little while. He says, now we're multiplying. That's not the stage that we're about to get to now. Pretty soon I'm just going to start multiplying. With all these grandchildren and people married that. Families are forever.
they are forever. I have to tell you, you need to study about Carl Webb. I know he loved me, and I loved him, and what a hard worker that guy was. And you got good blood in your veins, I want to tell you that. Privilege to be here. Hi, Brett.